the Honorable Congresswoman Betty McCollum, who represents Minnesota's 4th Congressional District. I'm Chris Doucette. I'm the Executive Director of Bright Stars of Bethlehem, and we are the fundraising arm of Dar al-Kalama University of Arts and Culture, which is the first and only University of Arts and Culture in all of Palestine. Our vision is that our Palestinian friends would all have life in abundance and that they would flourish. And we work really hard all over the US to unlock hope for the next generation of creative leaders in Palestine. We've got a great program for you today. There's probably going to be lots of questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the, submit your questions in the comments, and at the end we'll have a Q&A time. So let's get started. Joining us from Bethlehem, Palestine is a friend, an author of 43 books, a scholar, a theologian, and the co-founder of Bright Stars of Bethlehem, and most of all, a world changer. Welcome, Reverend Dr. Mitri Raheb.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Mitri.
Good evening, everyone, and it is really a pleasure and an honor to have you all with us for a very special webinar tonight. And it is really my pleasure and honor to introduce to you our very special guest, the Honorable Congresswoman Betty McCollum, who represents Minnesota's 4th Congressional District. Representative McCollum has served in the U.S. House of Representatives since 2001. At the time of her election in 2000, she was only the 2nd Minnesota woman elected to serve in Congress since statehood in 1858. Women leadership is at the heart of our mission at Dar al-Kalama University, and so we are very proud of Representative McCollum, who is also a member of the House Appropriation Committee, among other subcommittees. Representative McCollum cares deeply about education for Americans, but also for the children of Palestine. Earlier in her career, Representative McCollum was a teacher, in fact, a high school teacher. She understands how education can inspire and open so many doors for children and young people. And so this is something, a passion we really share, education. And maybe it's not by chance that one of our close partner universities is Augsburg University in the US, which is in Betty's district. Representative McCollum is passionate about the arts, another important value that we share. She has been an active member in the Congressional Arts Caucus, which aims to influence art legislation and support the National Endowment of the Art. I wish if Representative McCollum would have been representative here in Palestine to push for art legislation here on our end. Our mission at Dar al-Kalama University is to educate the next generation of creative leaders in Palestine and to use the art as a tool for social transformation. Mm-hmm. Representative McCollum is passionate about justice. She introduced legislation HR 2407 entitled the Promoting Human Rights for Palestinian Children Living Under Israeli Military Occupation Act. Representative McCollum introduced this act because she cares deeply about internationally recognized standards of human rights. Representative McCollum registration would prohibit the application of US funds to Israel for the military detention of children. In April of this year, Representative McCollum introduced the Defending the Human Rights of Palestinian Children and Families Living Under Israeli Military Occupation Act, a bill that aims to prohibit U.S. aid from being used by Israel to detain Palestinian minors, demolish Palestinian homes, and further annex West Bank land. The bill requires the State Department to file an annual report to Congress detailing the extent of which U.S. aid from the previous fiscal year was used to bankroll any of the aforementioned activities. We truly appreciate and support the courage and bold steps on behalf of the Palestinian children and all who are oppressed, including the Native Americans in Minnesota, who Representative McCollum really cares deeply about. Your work, Betty, is not easy. And I know it sometimes may be risky, but the risks of losing the creative talent of young people is even greater. Representative McCollum, your work and our work at Dar al-Kalima through Bright Stars of Bethlehem is closely aligned. And this is why you were the first recipient of the Friends of Bright Stars of Bethlehem Award that I had the honor to present to you in October 2019 in Minnesota in person. Your Excellency, thank you for being our very special guest today.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm and kind introduction. And because we've met before, because we share passion for the arts, for social justice, for human rights, I'm willing to drop my title and just call me Betty from now on. And with your permission, I will use Mitri.
Thank you, Betty.
So it's good to see you again, my friend. Wish it was in person. I know everybody's being very cautious and very concerned about the virus, and so you have been on my mind, you and the youth that you work so hard with, and of course their extended families too. I'm watching very closely what's happening with vaccine and testing in your part of the world, and my government needs to step up more, speak out more to make sure everybody has equal access to that.
Thank you. I know how deeply also you care about health, and vaccine is really right now the hot issue everywhere in the world, and so your support for that is really needed. Thank you. I think the first question that is on the mind of everyone on the webinar tonight is, what brought Betty to be interested in justice in Palestine? I mean, this doesn't seem to be like a standard position for a member of the US Congress. I think we are all eager to hear from you.
Well, I didn't even have a passport when I was first elected to Congress, because you didn't need one to go to Canada, my neighboring the country to the north of my great state of Minnesota. And so when I got my passport and had an opportunity to travel, I took a different route than many members of Congress do, and I went to refugee camps, and I went to areas that were recovering from war, whether it be in places in Africa, the Middle East, and in South and Central America here on my side of the world. And I realized, a loss for human rights for one person is a loss for human rights for everyone around the world. We are all interconnected, and how we treat our friends and our family is just, repeated as people continue to meet one another. So I had been outspoken on human rights. I had been speaking out for girls' education in Africa, against child marriage, for access to HIV/AIDS interventions, as well as for women to have safe maternal deliveries. And so in 2006 was the beginning of the journey that really propelled me into this, when there was a House International Relations Committee. I voted against the Palestinian Anti-Terrorism Act of 2006, because that bill was what people were using politically to punish Hamas after the Palestinian Authority had won that election. But in doing so, they cut off funds to NGOs that help everyday people and help children survive and thrive. And so I voted against it, and then I was attacked by AIPAC on it, and held my ground and did my research. And so in 2013, when the UNICEF report came out about children in military detention, some of the recommendations and some of the things that they observed, my chief of staff saw the report before I did, and he was like, you need to see this. And we just couldn't be silent once we had read that, because Israel is an ally, but when a good friend is doing something that you think is wrong, if you're a good friend, you say something. So we wrote a letter to Secretary Kerry, and that led eventually to us moving forward with legislation, to the current legislation I have here before us, which is HR 2590. And I know you've got some follow-up questions, so I'm a former teacher, so I'm not going to talk for 30 minutes. I'll let you direct the conversation, Mitri.
Yeah, thank you, Betty. I guess our friends, sometimes they might feel frustrated, and they think maybe nothing is changing in Congress regarding Palestine. But do you see like a change over time in the U.S. Congress regarding the Israeli-Palestinian issue?
Yeah, that first vote when I said in 2006, no, we should not cut off humanitarian aid to make a political point. These are real people's lives that are being impacted. And a lot of this was healthcare aid, by the way, which comes from some of the great people who are supporters of the work that you do to engage youth. A lot of our hospitals and a lot of the same folks who volunteer time and support for the Bright Stars of Bethlehem were involved in putting together this healthcare support for Palestinians. At that time, that vote passed overwhelmingly. It had, 361 votes in 2006 to allow to cut off NGO aid. And when I voted against it, I had people kind of coming up to me and asking me, why are you doing that? I explained it. I actually changed a few votes on the floor that day to vote against the bill along with me. And many of those people are still with me today in Congress signing on to the legislation. Currently, our legislation has 29 co-sponsors. And part of that is the work that people in Minnesota, and you have affiliations all across the United States, are talking to their members of Congress about it. And you are changing hearts because you're changing minds with facts. So it's not going to get signed into law. I know that. But we have been able to raise an awareness and have an open discussion where none was taking place, in 2006. And this is a good thing. And the work that we're doing, it's hard. It's not gonna happen overnight, but we are really making a difference working together on this issue.
Yeah, and we really appreciate that. We know it's not easy, but that courage, I think, is really so important because basically you are also defending, the U.S. Values, the American values that everyone talks about, but really only very few people, I feel, have the courage to walk the talk. And you are definitely one of those role models for us that really had the courage always to walk the talk. I guess our friends here would like to hear from you also. If you have any advice, how maybe they can better advocate for Palestinian human rights in the US and in Congress in particular. Any insight, any tips that you can offer to us, I think are highly appreciated.
So one of the things that people need to do is they need to look beyond the headlines in a story. They need to, I tell when I talk to high school students, college students, or even at town hall meetings, and we're talking about international issues, People need to look at the BBC, tag the Middle East, find out what's going on in a more in-depth way. Read papers like The Guardian. There's Israeli newspapers which cover what's going on very fair-handed and have editorials quite often speaking out against the Israeli government. That gives people confidence that they can speak about this issue. When Americans are asked, do you think any of U.S. taxpayer funds should go to imprison Palestinian children in military facilities run by the Israeli government? The overwhelming support is none of my money should go there. When you ask Americans, should any of your taxpayers' dollars be used in any way, shape, or form to demolish a home, a mosque, a school, a church, overwhelmingly, the answer is no, none of my dollars should go there. So then what I turn around and say is, this is what our bill does. It doesn't cut off aid to Israel to defend itself, but what it says is U.S. taxpayers' dollars will not be used for the Israeli expansion of settlements and to terrorize young children in these military camps, that are put in the detention facilities. So people need to, read and explore and not allow a conversation to be cut off when you're trying to have an honest conversation, that you're being anti-Semitic or you don't understand or you don't value the lives of Israeli citizens. I value the lives of everyone, and I especially value the lives of children. And I want Israeli children and Palestinian children to grow up in peace and security and with opportunity, because that's the only way we're going to achieve peace in their lifetime, is if we treat everyone with the same dignity and respect. And that starts with treating children with dignity and respect.
Yeah, that is so true. And I think as a former teacher, this is something that is really so at the heart of your work and at the heart of our work. And I think raising awareness is really important because often we feel that many people in the US are really not aware of what's happening here on the ground. And I think as Bright Stars of Bethlehem, one of our mission is to raise awareness in the US because this is important. It starts there. And we see when people come to visit us on trips, how they are really transformed, because they ask themselves, how come that we did not know? I mean, even very sophisticated people, people who are very well educated, they have no clue what is happening here on the ground. And so we need more people also to come here and see really with their own eyes. Come and see is really important. Would you maybe like to say a few more words about the bill that you introduced?
Well, I just think it's very important, and I'm so proud of the wide swath of support it has. 150 organizations. We have people of all faiths, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and people of other aligning faiths. All working to get the word out about respecting human rights. I think one of the things that our news is covering more, people are becoming more aware of, is what's happening with the settlements. And I think many Americans were hopeful or hope to be hopeful that the settlement expansion in Israel will stop. The other thing that I think is important for people to realize too is members of Congress, when I tell them that the Arab members of the Knesset are treated as second-class citizens. We had a phrase that was used after the Civil War, the way our country disparaged our African-American brothers and sisters with rights to vote, rights to use public transportation, what drinking fountain to use. They were called Jim Crow laws. They were treated as second-class citizens. And when I met with one of the Arab members of the Knesset, and she was telling me about that, I was just taken back. But I think the work that you do in focusing on children is so important. And that's where the arts comes in. If I could, ask you to, even say more about what you've been working on lately, because the arts are healing, the arts are educational, they're stimulating, and they're healing in the fact that people can express all kinds of emotions, from frustration to great sadness, to feeling like they're invisible, to feeling that they're viewed in a certain way that doesn't represent who they really are. And children need to have outlets and expression. And the fact that you do it in so many different medias, with young adults producing documentaries, young children being able to be in a safe place and explore who they are in an interfaith way, is so it just blows my mind, the work that you do, because we need to focus on the next generation of leaders, that they have hope, that they have opportunity, and they learn ways to express not only their joy, but their frustration, at times their anger.
Yeah. Thank you. Maybe since you gave me this opportunity to say more, before doing that, let me say we really also, we appreciate your stand for social justice for Native American and for African American. These two groups are so close to our heart as well, because we feel we have so much pain that we share, but also we have so much talent that we share. And it has been really, for our people, a great experience, to hear the story of African Americans and to hear the story of Native American, and to share these stories and to work together for a better world for everyone, so that really everyone can achieve what God has intended for him and for her. And your work there is really inspirational. Yeah, I have actually something to share with you, some good news. Usually we don't have many good news coming out these days from Palestine, but one good news definitely is that 3 weeks ago, we got finally the accreditation as a full-fledged university. So far we have been a university college, meaning we had only one college. Now we have 5 colleges, and we can grow more colleges. And we can now offer master's degrees and PhDs down the road. And so this is opening, for us really a door wide that we can invest more in our young people. And so we have been very busy in the last 3 weeks, to hire new staff, including vice presidents. And I know you would love that. We used to have only 2 vice presidents until 2 weeks ago. Now we have 5. And guess what? 4 out of the 5, 80% are women. I think we are the only maybe university, we can even compete with, I think, American universities. I mean, which university has 80% women as vice president? But this is actually the Palestine that not only we dream of, but we work hard, step by step, to build. Because we don't want just to have a state on the paper, but we want really, to have the whole community rising up and reaching their potential. So 2 days ago was the first day in the semester. And today I was just, in awe, seeing all these young people, new students coming on campus. And really, they want to do something hopeful with their life. Mm-hmm. And as you said, art is very important because, especially living in Bethlehem, surrounded from 3 sides by the wall, we don't want our young people to believe that the wall, is the end. But we want them to believe that the sky is the limit. It's not the wall. And hopefully one day like what happened in Berlin, the wall can come down and we can live in freedom, because freedom is one of the most important values for us. It's maybe the most important values that we stand for. And I know that is an important value for you as Americans. So I guess that is just, quickly about some new developments here. I think one question that is also on the mind of people tonight is the change from the Trump administration to the Biden administration. I mean, you are a passionate Democrat, and what hopes do you have with the Biden administration in regard to Palestine?
Well, we will be continually reaching out with the support of the organizations and our sponsors on our bill to have conversations with Secretary of State about making sure that we uphold the rights of children, and that just simply as my bill says, that there's accountability, that none of the U.S. taxpayers' funds are used to imprison children, separate them from their families, as well as destroy their homes and schools. So as we have more members of Congress on our legislation, we hope to have an in-person dialogue with the State Department about what our expectations are that the State Department should be doing to standing up for human rights. I know President Biden had a recent visit. It was delayed a day because of what the situation in Afghanistan. And, we have to keep the people living in Afghanistan in our hearts and in our prayers too, because the Taliban are saying one thing, but so far I haven't seen enough. I don't have enough trust to believe that they're going to deliver on all that they've told the international community. But we need to, keep the dialogue, keep the pressure on, keep the accountability on. And that just isn't members of Congress. That's all the people who are supporting us from all different walks of life here in the United States, and some of our people who work with us not only in the Palestinian area but in Israel on this issue. So it's the constant drumbeat of talking about it and asking for accountability.
Yeah, thank you for doing that with the Biden administration. And I think your advice basically is for our viewers today is to keep going to your woman, congressman, and to keep raising this Palestinian issue, because change will not come. This is what I heard you saying, will not come from alone. It's the fruit of hard work that the grassroots, the organizations are doing on the ground, and which enables you actually to do also and to push for these issues.
Right, and the White House also has websites, and the Secretary of State's office has websites where people can send an email or write a letter. And so I would encourage people to do that as well. If there's a saying in America about if you want to be in the room where it happens, you need to be there. You can be there many ways. You can be there physically. You can be there through video like we are today. You can be there through email. You can be there through talking to your friends and neighbors and educating them on what this is a movement, and it's growing. But you can never stop working on it, because people will get distracted and start working on something else. And that's what's so wonderful about what your organization with Bright Stars of Bethlehem are able to do is keep the focus on. You have news to share about the university. You have news to share about some of the success, the documentaries that you shared with me 2 years ago. That the young adults had made. You need to keep, you can't be silent. You have to keep prodding, keep talking, keep questioning, keep sharing.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is very, very important advice, because we should not take anything for granted. It's really only hard work that would pay off on so many different levels. It's in the university, but it's also really in the politics, I think, the same thing. So maybe my last question to you before we hopefully get some questions from our friends around the world is, I try to put myself in your shoes, which is scary, I guess. But I can imagine, every day you are receiving one delegation after the other. Every delegation comes to push you to advocate for one issue. But, and so everyone needs like your support, but also you need our support. So how can we help you, make your life easier? Because I know sometimes it's really not easy. And I know many of our friends in Minnesota who are so proud of you and are they love you. How can we all maybe do a better job in supporting you? Because by supporting you, we are supporting education, justice, environment, health for Americans, but also for Palestinians and for so many people.
Mitri, you put me in my social studies teacher's mode. How to lobby government, right? How to lobby me. First off, if one of you are members of Congress, and we have the information on our official website, is on the bill 2509, HR 2509, please thank them, call them. If you haven't done that, make sure that you do it. If they're doing a virtual town hall meeting, that is a great way to say thank you for being on the Palestinian detention, to stop Palestinian child detention bill 2590. It's important, and give one or two reasons. And the other people that are listening at that town hall, they will become curious about what you're talking about. And so that's a way to kind of grow things. So if you have a way in a public forum to thank somebody, if they're not on the legislation, it's not about shaming them. It's not about, why haven't you done this? Maybe they haven't, been approached. Maybe they've been approached by the other side with misinformation. And, say, I would love to have an opportunity to talk to you or whoever in your office handles this legislation. Can we set up a phone call? Can we have a conversation? Lots of times people think that they have to talk to the member. I have wonderful staff both in my Minnesota office and in my Washington, D.C. office, and all members of Congress do. And so finding out who handles the international affairs or who's the human rights person in that office to start a dialogue and an introduction. And sometimes that's what then can lead to actual having a meeting with a member. You don't have to meet necessarily with your member in DC. Once COVID's lifted, we're doing everything virtually, unfortunately now. But you can set up I do virtual meetings with small groups on certain issues. But there's no harm in having a one-on-one with the district director first, because we get a lot of things asked in our schedule, and just throwing a meeting out there and then being upset if you don't get to talk to the member. Ask to speak to the district director. Say there's 5 people in this congressional district, or there's 50 people in this church, or we have an interfaith group of people from temples and synagogues and mosques and churches, both Protestant and Catholic, and atheists. We have a community group that would really love to talk to you about this, because this just isn't a single issue for one group. It's an issue that affects a lot of us that we would like to see movement on. And be positive when you do that, because I don't know if you have this saying in Bethlehem, but our grandmothers often say you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, and so that is good advice, because people like to be around people who are positive, right? So if you're positive and uplifted about what you're doing, and then give examples of great work that's going on for youth, and how important it is that youth feel hope and opportunity, and being put in an Israeli detention military situation is not a way for a young man or a young girl to feel that there's hope and opportunity for them. They just feel like they're further being oppressed.
Yeah, thank you. I think our friends, you got the recipe. Now you have really to work according to this great recipe of the honey and connecting with your Congress and representatives. We have many questions. We don't have much time, but let me start with this one. Is it possible to bring Palestinians to testify in Congress about child abuse and abduction by the Israeli military?
Yes, that could be a possibility. Right now with travel restrictions, that's pretty hard. I think the State Department would have to get very much involved. And as we know, sometimes the Israeli government restricts travel. But there's ways to do it with camera crews and videos and having safe places for children to speak to. We can be creative, but part of this is going to be if to get a committee chair to have a hearing. So you need to ask for the hearing. And then you need to say, we have the following people who we think would be great testifiers if they can come in person. If they can't come in person, how do we go about allowing you to hear their voice, to hear them speak, or to do something through the video?
Yeah. There are many questions about the current situation on child detention. And there are several questions on that. I'm not sure if you would like to talk to that. And there is something also questions about the COVID situation in the West Bank and what can Congress do about it.
Well, first off, just some facts. And with COVID, things might have changed a little bit, but based on human rights reports from credible sources, the Israeli military detains anywhere between 500 to 700 Palestinian children every year. And so it's an estimated, if you add that up, that's 13,000 children since 2000. The Israeli government's a signature for the rights of children with the UN, and this is in clear violation to that. These children are often taken out of their homes at night. Sometimes they're blindfolded. Sometimes while even being driven to the military detention center, they're in stress positions. Children have signed confessions in Hebrew, which is not their language. And their parents have no ability to come see them or talk to them, and they go without legal representation. So the whole thing's wrong. They shouldn't be in a military detention center. If a child has done something wrong, if a young adult has done something wrong, there is a civil society way in which to address that, and it should be held that way. They should be given the same rights as an Israeli child who would commit an act of violence or something inappropriate. This is totally wrong the way the Israeli government goes about it. We would never in the United States allow a young child, and we're talking about children sometimes 8 years old, to be interrogated without a parent or an attorney present. It's just wrong. You put the child in a situation where they are totally helpless and literally scared to death because they don't know what's going to happen to them. So it's just wrong.
Yeah. Thank you. Time is running, but still I would like to take maybe the last two questions out of the many questions. What are the prospects to reopen the Palestinian embassy in Washington, D.C., and how can we push for that is one question.
I would love to see that happen. There has been talk in Congress about seeing that happen, and there has been even talk from some of the people who are supportive of our bill, but really think that we need to have official dialogue back and forth with one another. So I am hopeful. Right now, I think with COVID, the world economy, we're dealing with what happened in Afghanistan right now. Along with that, there's many things demanding the administration's attention, we cannot allow this to fall down at the bottom of the list. So we have to be firm in making sure that this administration addresses that issue of an embassy.
Yeah, that's very important for us because it will keep the channels of communication really open between Palestine and the US. And the last question, really the last one, is any chance for Representative Betty McCollum leading a group of members of Congress to Palestine in a post-COVID era?
Well, and you said people were asking about COVID. Many of us are saying that we want the vaccine to be distributed in the Palestinian area. And I know President Biden sent some over, but we need to work to send more. We've contributed, actually, the United States has contributed actually a lot of vaccine around the world. And we need the EU and other countries that have the capability of manufacturing or helping support it financially to stand up and do that as well. Love to come to Bethlehem at some point, but we need COVID to go away, so we all have to do our part with that, and everybody needs to stay safe and stay healthy. And after COVID, that would be a wonderful trip, because it is a place that I've heard about since I was a little girl. It is a place that I sang about during Christmas. The Star Over Bethlehem at the St. Catherine's University, where I attended college, when the star's in the right position, they open up, they have a small observatory for the public to sign up and come see the Star of Bethlehem.
So we really hope that the Star of Bethlehem will guide you and other members of Congress to Bethlehem soon. You have an open invitation. We would love to have you here and address our students. I think they would all be honored to hear from you. And this will be a life-changing experience for them. Betty, thank you for who you are, for what you stand for your hard work. As Bright Stars of Bethlehem, our tagline is hope is what we do. And you give us hope, but also you do hope all the time. Thank you. It was really incredible to have you with us. What an honor and what a pleasure and what an engaging discussion. Chris?
Wow. Okay, Congresswoman McCollum, just like Mitri, we consider you a world changer. We're so encouraged by the good work that you do. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate
thank you for doing the work together with me.
Thank you. So a quick reminder to everybody, we've got Mitri's 43rd book, hot off the presses here. It's actually available on Amazon. So if you'd like a copy of this new book, it's available on Amazon. We'd love for you to read this. Also, we would like all of you to remember about our gala coming up, our national virtual celebration of Hope Unlocked on September 18th. And that you can register on our website at www.brightstarsbethlehem.org. So our gala, we're so excited about this because we're going to, again, this year have Palestinian student stories, which are awesome. An update from Mitri, a further update about the Dar al-Column on what's going on there. And we're also going to have some special shout outs from special friends, including Farah Nabulsi, the director of the short film that was nominated for an Academy Award called The Present. Some of you know of her. And then also we're just honored and thrilled that Reverend Dr. Cornel West will be joining us as a special guest. And also Congresswoman McCollum herself might say a few words. We also will be having the raffle, and we've got some really cool prizes. So buy your raffle tickets now, and those will be available until just before the event. And one other announcement I'd like to make is that we have got an incredible matching gift given to us by the John and Frank Sparatio Foundation. They have agreed to match any gift that is donated between now and September 17th, right before the gala. up to $35,000. So if you'd like to partner with us, and if you during the double lockdown, if you'd like to double the impact of your gift, please do go on our website and make a gift today or sometime before the 18th. Again, thank you all for joining us. We appreciate you all so much, and you're partnering with us to unlock hope. God bless you and have a great day. Take care.